Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Torrent Pharmaceuticals Limited Q1 FY22 earnings conference call. We have with us today Mr. Sanjay Gupta, Executive Director, International Business, Mr. Sudhir Menon, Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Aman Mehta, Chief Marketing Officer, India Business. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on a touch-tone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Sudhir Menon. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. And hi, good evening everyone, and welcome to Torrent Quarter 1 FY22 earnings call. At the outset, Quarter 1 growth was backed by continued growth momentum in the branded generic markets, mainly India and Brazil. The second wave of pandemic impacted recovery trends across some of the key markets we operate. Very shortly, in terms of financial performance during the quarter, revenues were 2,134 crores, up by 4% on a year-on-year basis. EBITDA was 717 crores, up by 8%. Profit before tax was at 484 crores, up by 20%. Net profits after taxes was at 330 crores, up by 3%. The company will now start utilizing the MAT credit, which is grouped under deferred tax, as the normal tax will become applicable from this year, before the company gets into the new tax regime of 25%. The tax cash outflow will continue to be 17% for standalone India. I shall now request Aman to provide insights on the India business performance.
Thanks, Sudhir. India business revenues at 1093 crores grew by 18% on a year-on-year basis. Growth was driven by strong momentum in top brands across all therapies and was complemented by new launches. As per the AIOCD data set, Torrent's Q1 growth was at 24% versus the market growth of 37%. The market growth includes high contribution from COVID treatments and a low base from last year. We have launched baricitinib during this quarter and are conducting clinical trials for molnupiravir. Both of these are licensed products for COVID, and we continue to look for more partnership opportunities to widen the portfolio. Torrent has launched its trade generics division during the quarter with a complementary portfolio to the RX business. PCPM for the RX business for the quarter was 10 lakhs with an MR strength of 3,600. Torrent continues to focus on brand building and specialty approach and has 16 brands in the top 500 of the IPM with 11 brands more than 100 crore sales. I'll now hand over to Mr. Sanjay Gupta to take us through the international business.
Thanks, Aman. Speaking first about Brazil, which is the second largest branded generic market outside India. Brazil Q1 sales were at 108 million, up by 14%. Growth was aided by strong performance in our generic segment, which now accounts for about 7.5% of our top line. Growth was also helped by new branded generics that were launched. So there were two brands launched in 2021, which have contributed to the growth, as well as the recent price increases allowed by the authorities from April onwards. So as per IMS, Q1 FY22 covered market growth was 11.6%, while Torrent growth was at 9.4%. IMS expects Brazil pharma market to grow at about 10% in 2021, and we expect our growth to be superior to the market growth rate. Moving on to Germany. Germany sales were at euro 29 million, flattish growth versus last year same period. IMS for the last 3 months is showing an overall market degrowth of -1% as compared to -4% in 2021. IMS reflections on Torrent show a growth of 15% in the last 3 months. As the COVID situation improves, we expect the German generics market to return to its long-term growth rate of 3 to 4%, with Torrent growth returning to high single digits. On the US side, US sales were at 36 million, down by 24% on a year-on-year basis and down by 3% on a Q-on-Q basis. Growth continues to be impacted due to lack of new product launches, pending the re-inspection of our facilities and price erosion in the base portfolio. As of June 30th, 54 ANDAs were pending approval with the US FDA and 7 tentative approvals were received. I would like to conclude by stating that the branded generic markets led by India and Brazil continue to drive growth backed by our top brands and performance of new launches. We will continue to focus on returning our German and US business back to growth and to further deepen our presence in all our core markets. Operator, we can open the call to questions, please.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sriram Rathi from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Firstly, on India business, if you can break it up into the price growth and volume growth, and also some idea on how the chronic and acute divisions have performed.
Sure. So AIOCD data shows Torrent's growth at 24%. Out of that, 14% was volume, 6% was price, and 4% was new products. And on a broad basis, I think subchronic and acute definitely had much higher growth. Firstly, because of the new low base last year, and also there was a significantly higher demand from COVID prescriptions during the quarter.
Okay, got it. So 6% is the price growth, which is, and
yeah.
And secondly, so this is on the other expenses part. This quarter we have seen that it is lower even YOY also, even if you exclude the R&D. So what exactly has driven that? Is it because of the lockdown in the first 2 months of this quarter? And how should we look at this number going forward? Because I think from the last 4-5 quarters now, more or less it is in the range of 350 to 370 crores.
Marketing expenses were certainly, I would say, because of the second wave this time, were lower than what we had planned. But I don't think there should be too much of an increase from here at the current rate. So this should be a pretty representative number in terms of marketing spends for the year. Sudhir, if you'd like to add anything.
No, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should work with this kind of number going forward also. Probably will increase sales.
Plus minus here and there, Sriram.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. And just lastly, one thing, what should be the reported tax rate now, this year?
So, Sriram, just to give a background, the government had come out with a new tax regime, right? About 25% for all the companies.
Yeah.
And what it said in that course is that, no exemptions would be available and 25% would be the tax rate for everyone. Okay. And the government also gave an option to people that the people who had MAT credits in their books, they can still continue in the old regime so that they can utilize the MAT credit. And once that is done, they can transit into the new tax regime. So for us, it started now. So the cash tax would continue to remain at 17%. And the MAT credit utilization will start for the balance.
Okay.
So the effective tax, including deferred tax, would be roughly 31%, but the cash tax would be roughly 17%, because there will be a MAT credit utilization from the balance sheet coming into the P&L.
Right. Got it. That's helpful, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Neha Manpuria from JPM. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. So this on the employee cost, given that we had rationalized our MR during last quarter, the quarter-on-quarter increase is primarily because of increments, or just wanted to get a sense there.
So largely increments, Neha, but quarter four, if you recollect, I had also said there was a reversal on some provisions to the tune of 7 to 8 crores.
Okay.
Other than the increment impact which is there. So ideally 341 should have been, let's say, 350.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, plus the increment.
Okay. And Sanjay, on Brazil, the quarter-on-quarter decline, on it was about 140 real, close to 110. Is this some inventory correction in the market, or if you could give some color on that? And second, on Germany, now that our quality issues have resolved, we were expecting normalization of sales, to happen, given most of Europe has pretty much opened up. Any reason why we are not being able to ramp it up to, the 30 plus million euro level that we were seeing before the quality issue?
Sure. So starting with Brazil, so generally, traditionally in Brazil, Q4 sales are always high. And the reason is that the distributors speculate on price increases which take place on the 1st of April. So it works pretty much the same way every year. So there is usually on Q1Q a precipitous drop in Q1 versus Q4, which is normal. So I don't see anything unusual here. We decide on the level of inventories we want to keep in the channel at the end of March, and it does go up. And then by the end of June, it comes back to a normal level. So Neha, the appropriate comparison would be year on year, not quarter on quarter for Brazil, because of this phenomena. For Germany, there are a few things here. I would have liked to see a higher level of sales. So what is holding us back from that 30 plus level? Firstly, it is the overall market. Last 3 months, we've seen the market go down by -1% again. I was expecting it to return to growth, but the second wave kind of impacted it in March, April, May, and we had a lower market growth. Secondly, what has happened is we have about 10 to 12% of our business in the OTC space, which has suffered disproportionately because the sales of this business has actually declined. So that has had an impact. What I can say is going forward, our internal issues are resolved. And as the market, I would expect it to come back, to the traditional 3 to 4% range. And then for us to be in the high single digits, 7 to 9% range before the end of the year. So hopefully in the next few quarters, we'll be able to show you numbers in that range.
But Sanjay, just to add to what you said, the OTC impact is because of the lockdown, right? So quarter two should be better. Sanjay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Angelo Bell, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to have a quick overview of the company, that how is it with regards to the US pricing? Is the pricing pressure returning? And if so, what are the steps, or how does Torrent Pharma foresee it? Thank you.
So on the US side, the number one cause of decline in sales has been the pricing pressure that we've been facing. And the pricing, essentially, we face it full blast because we have a relatively mature portfolio. We have not had much launches since March of 2019 when the FDA issues started. So on the mature portfolio, how it works is that there are new competitors that emerge every few months, and then they make competitive bids to your customers, and there's a pricing impact. So I would say that for Torrent, we've been seeing high single-digit pricing impact across our portfolio on an annualized basis.
All right, so thank you so much. But are there any remediations which you are looking forward that it doesn't impact us much moving forward? Are we looking
So generally, the way to counter the pricing impact is to have new product launches, which is like the oxygen of the US generics market and of the players. Unfortunately, we seem to be a bit, let's say, jammed up on that front. So, but last few years, we've continued to file. So in 18-19, I think we filed about 20 ANDAs, in 19-20 about 12, and 20-21 about 12. So we've been continuing to make new filings in the US, And as soon as the facility issues are resolved, we expect to launch about 12 to 15 products a year. And that would more than compensate for the pricing decline in the base portfolio and lead us back to growth.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your response.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prakash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Good evening. Just missed on the opening remarks on the India outlook as well as gross margin and EBITDA margin outlook. I mean, while India growth is very strong, but gross margins are tad lower. If you could explain that, and the outlook as well.
Yeah. So I'll first take the gross margin question, Prakash. So basically, although the India contribution is higher, there are 2-3 impacts which have happened this quarter versus quarter of last year. So one is the export benefit income not being there this quarter versus same quarter previous year. That impact is, I would say, 0.25 kind of a number. The other is, the second benefits are over for us, right? So 2021 was the last year. So that's again impacting the gross margin by another, I would say, 0.25. So both put together is 0.5, I would say. The other thing, what has happened is, India, although the India share is higher, I think there's a skewness towards the acute portfolio, which I think the concentration is a little higher compared to, the quarter 4 or last year, same quarter. And that has caused a drop in the gross margin, I would say. So it's basically the product mix which is driving, which anyway should come back in the next quarter, I believe.
Okay. So, and the outlook on the India business, sir?
Yeah, so if we look at the June data at 14%, that was practically with the lowest COVID cases across the country. So April, May had a high growth and June was significantly lower. So depending on the footfall recovery as the country is opening up now substantially, pretty much everywhere apart from a few metros and a few states, our views that double-digit growth for the market should continue even without the COVID drugs going ahead.
Okay. And do you think your entry now with the COVID drugs, Molnupiravir and the first one, and you were expected to disclose one more, so is there any color to that? And do you think these products have a long runway of growth, or these are like getting prepared for if at all there's a third wave? How do you think about this pipeline that you are building?
Yeah, it would be more for if at all the future wave. That would be where these products would be prescribed the most. It would not be a long-term prescription.
Okay. And for the long term, in terms of new introductions after DAPA, are there any new introductions around nutrition or preventive health care or any other segment which will drive future growth?
So, CNS, we've had a few launches. One from last quarter has done well so far, Brivaracetam. So that market is picking up quite well. We've also launched a Perampanel, which is another anti-epileptic. So CNS has seen a good traction, I would say, of new launches. Apart from that, Baricitinib was already launched this quarter as well. So I think this Q1 we had about 4 new products. We're looking at a few nutritional extensions in the coming quarters as well. And then the next wave of launches will be after the patent expirations next year. Large launches, I would say.
Okay, understood. And on exports, I see that Brazil currency after long has reversed. We are still near industry growth. So when do we start seeing the higher growth in Brazil? Given we just mentioned that 10% industry growth, and we expect to outperform that. Plus, there will be the currency tailwind which should start, or that is unlikely.
So the currency tailwind is, from what we have seen of the economic forecast done by various banks, etc., it seems to be unlikely. So the country seems to be fairly stable this year. They're forecasting a GDP growth of about 6%. and next year I've seen figures in the 3% range. So in terms of inflation also, things are pretty stable. So all in all, I don't expect the currency to devalue substantially. In terms of growth, I think you will see that growth will come from three or four things. One is as we had discussed that we are investing in our generics business. So we hired, last year we hired 7 additional people. We'll be hiring some more people this year to push the generics business, and that has grown quite handsomely, and that will continue to grow as we launch more products. The second thing is we benefited from the price increase that took place this year on time on April the 1st. So the price increase that was authorized for, it's by category of products, but for the most competitive products, the government authorized a 10% price increase. So that will benefit us as many of our products fall into that category. And then thirdly, we have new launches which are on the calendar. So last year we launched 2 new products. One was mirtazapine and the second was bisoprolol. Mirtazapine is already showing a double-digit share in prescriptions and volume. And bisoprolol is mid-single digit, but the goal is to reach double digits soon. And then this fiscal year, we would launch about 5 products. Some of them are quite major products, and so they would help push that growth rate much above the market growth rates. That is our expectation.
Okay, thank you for the detailed answer. And one question on growth expectations. So we have seen India reviving quite a bit. We have seen Brazil reviving now. Germany, you had a couple of quarters back. So when do we start seeing double-digit growth? Because US is something which is pulling down our double-digit growth, both in terms of top line and EBITDA growth. So when do we see that coming through?
Well, unfortunately, Prakash, we have no position to give any guidance on the US. And the main problem there is the FDA. When do they start traveling to India? When do they inspect the plants and start approving our new products? We are from our side doing whatever we can in terms of filings and getting products from third parties, but that has a limited impact. Last year we launched only 2 new products which are both manufactured at third parties. Coming year, if the plans don't get approved, we'll have a single-digit number of launches.
Oh, so, Prakash, I'll give you 2 data points actually, or rather 1 data point. So this quarter, the US impact on the overall growth is around 7%, right? I mean, because last year, quarter 1 was roughly 47 million, and which came down to a base of 36 in quarter 4 this year, right? And that's something which we are maintaining. So assuming, let's say, quarter 3, come quarter 3, the 7% impact should not be there, because we are maintaining the same base of 36, 37, right?
Okay. And assuming you have double-digit growth across the other 3 markets, you can achieve double-digit growth.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. And last question for you on cash flow generation for the quarter and any debt repaid?
Yeah, we repaid around 350 crores approximately.
These are refinances or largely from cash flow from operations?
From cash flow.
Okay, perfect. Great. I'll join back with you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shyam Srinivasan from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question and good evening. Just one in the press release, it says you have launched a trade generic division during the quarter. What's the idea here? Is there any outlook that you want to share on this?
Yeah, we launched the division in Q1, and so I think we would want the business to stabilize a bit first before sharing more details. But broadly speaking, it's a complementary portfolio focusing mainly on the acute segment, predominantly acute and some subchronic. There's barely any chronic share in the trade generic business. So while we would look at having organic launches in this basket, would also look at shifting some of our prescription brands to the trade generic division at some point where there would be a higher growth potential. These would be in molecules or segments where there is and self-medication. So as of now, I would say it's been a good start, but we would wait for maybe another quarter or 2 to comment more on the trajectory.
And if we were to look at the margin profile for this, would it be very different, you think, or in a kind of an umbrella approach, it should kind of feed into the entire India business? How should we look at and maybe the timing of why we started it now? Just curious.
The margin profile would be lower than the prescription business for sure. The nature of the business is such that you have to be at that price point. Plus, the channel margin is significantly higher. And in terms of the timing, I think this has been something that we've been discussing internally for quite a while. But because of COVID disruptions last year, it wasn't appropriate to launch. It requires a completely new supply chain, new set of distributors. So once that situation stabilized, we started working on this sometime around January, and we ended up launching it this quarter.
Got it. Thank you. And second question just is on the updates of the US from the Levittown facility about some of the oral liquids. Have we done anything yet, or is it not material enough for us to see in the numbers? I remember we had a 12 million annual target to kind of get back. So I'm just curious what's happening there.
So far we've not started commercializing products. It'll start actually a couple of months of delay, so we'll start selling some products in October. But you won't see the impact in the numbers, at least in the initial few months. It won't be material enough to move the needle.
So you're saying it should be a more fiscal 23 where
Correct.
We will likely see the impact of all these oral liquid launches. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And the last question is on sartans. Are we now back? Sorry, may have missed the update, but just what's happening on the sartan side?
Sure. So we've launched 2 sartans on the market. A third one would be launched in this quarter. The top line you will see some impact, but the margin profile on sartans is not what it used to be. So we will get our fair share on a couple of sartans, and those numbers should start coming in the top line from this quarter onwards.
You mean Q2? You mean, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Lastly, on R&D, I think slightly slower than the run rate you have had. Say I'm looking QOQ, but is it the same, like 6 to 7%? And where are we? What are we kind of filing? Where is it being directed to? Are we doing anything incrementally in terms of either complex filings? If you can just share some general outlook on the R&D spends.
So, Sudhir can comment on the expenditure level, but in terms of filings, because of the filings remain the 4 core markets, and to the extent possible, we try to have common products. So do common developments across all our geographies, and particularly in expensive areas like oncology or changes the risk profile of the portfolio, right? If you can leverage your R&D investments across multiple geographies. So our focus is on that. For the US, we do products with, I would say, generally complex products. So we stopped doing, or we do a very low single-digit number of simple vanilla oral solids. And generally, we are doing products which require a little bit higher level of investment, a higher level of risk. And overall, the number of ANDAs would be in the 10 to 12 range. So, in the past, we've done up till 20, but going forward, it will be more in the 10 to 12 range with some single-digit simple generics, but majority of the products having. So a good example would be Dapsone. So in April of 2021, we got a tentative approval from the FDA for Dapsone, which is an acne product for which we conducted a clinical trial in patients in the US. So the level of investment was higher than what historically we've been used to doing. And the tentative approval speaks well to the fact that we would get approval on that product. So you would see more of those kinds, and we are also building a large onco portfolio for all our markets. So onco products are very expensive to develop, given the cost of the R&D as well as the cost of the API. So we have a new facility outside of Ahmedabad where we would be developing these products for across all geographies. So those are the kinds of investments we are making right now.
Got it. And last question is on EBITDA. I think EBITDA excluding other income 32%. This has been higher than what we had talked in the past, where we thought there was going to be a fade in terms of margins once things normalize. How should we look at this EBITDA percentage?
Hey, Shyam, number one, as a policy, we don't give guidance, but if something was possible to be talked about in a scientific way, we could have done that. but now people are already talking about the third wave, right? So
Sure.
I would still wait for one more quarter to see where the full year can settle. So give me one more quarter, please.
Got it. Thank you and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from JM Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. Aman, just coming back to the trade generic business that we initiated, I mean, it's quite in contrast to our general philosophy of high gross margin businesses. So what is the landscape prompted you or has been prompting you in the past to look at this piece of business going forward in India?
No, I think earlier we had, a lot going on, I would say, over the last 5 years in terms of integration of businesses and mergers for portfolios. So I think we consciously stayed away from entering this segment. And it's also reached, I would say, a level where it can add meaningfully to our portfolio now. The size is, I would say, much greater than it was probably 5 years back. And anyway, our acute portfolio in the RX business is not very significant. So this gives us an opportunity to partake in the acute segment as well. So that's the idea, is to expand our overall market and market share and portfolio across TGX, trade generics plus branded generics.
So this is largely going to be around the acute portfolio, or acute segment, our trade generic business.
Yeah. There's barely any chronic sales in this segment because substitution is not very high, or even retail recommendation for chronic products is not very high. So this is most conducive for acute and subchronic.
Okay. And at what stage do you see it becoming meaningful for our overall India business?
I would say probably after the first year of launch, so maybe 3-4 quarters from now. Within the near term, so right now we've launched with the first phase of the portfolio. That's about 50-60 SKUs, but that's a long way to go for us to add more products here. So anything between about 3-4% of our total India business contribution is what we can look at as a reasonable target in the near term. And then at some point later, we can see how it's progressing. But I would say that would be an immediate target to have.
Got it. Thanks. And secondly, on the US business, so whenever the US business sort of starts all over again in sense of new product launches coming through, we are about $150 million run rate, give or take, right now on the business. And the dynamics in the US business, especially the oral side, have changed very meaningfully over the last 3-4 years. So realistically speaking, where do we see this business really heading to in terms of size over a period of time, in the next 2 to 4 to 5 years, based upon investments that we're making and what you see in the market?
So in terms of the business, right, we are very small in the US. So essentially, I would say that our business is now doing about 35-36 million a quarter. From these levels, I don't expect further declines. I would expect it to be more or less around these numbers in the quarters ahead, and then new launches would contribute meaningfully to moving the needle upstairs. Medium term, given that it's a $50 billion market, to do $500 million in US revenue is not something which is outside the realm of possibility, and it's something that we are planning for. And then we continue to work in terms of filing. So, after we get through this FDA barrier that we are currently stuck in, we should be able to return to growth with around 10 to 15 ANDAs and new approvals and launches each year.
Right. And secondly, in the annual report, there is a fair bit of mention of our innovation R&D efforts. So these efforts are largely targeted towards domestic launches, or there is some possibility of some meaningful launches in the export market also from that way?
So in the US, we're building a small portfolio of 505(b)(2)s. Currently, we have 3, and we aim to add 1 to 2 every year. So that's where we are going. So eventually, at some point in time, we will have a small promotional activity in the US. We are doing this in partnership, which has a lot more experience in marketing branded products in the US. So that's the approach. And for India, Aman is doing incremental innovation also. And I think there are a few products on the market. So Aman, you might like to speak about it.
For the NDDS, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our tapentadol nasal spray, which has been launched a few months back. And essentially, this is the first of its kind nasal spray for severe pain, where there is a post-operative pain, where there's no other alternate. So right now, it's only for use in hospitalized cases. So the market itself is not very large, but the product is, received very well so far. So we hope to capitalize on this launch.
And for the last one, Sudhir, this MAT credit utilization, over what period do we see our existing getting utilized and then going back to the 25% tax rate for domestic business?
Nitin, I think between 4 to 5 years.
So for the next 4 to 5 years, we'll be at the 30 to 31% reported tax rate.
Oh yes, including the deferred tax. But as I said, cash tax is only going to be 17%.
Yeah, but on a reported basis, 31% for the next 4 to 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. And because a bulk of our profits are all sitting out of the India subsidiary itself.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abdul Qadir Puranwala from Anand Rathi. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity. Just one question from my end. As to what you mentioned to the earlier participant, that the US business would have, would not go below this $35-36 million quarterly run rate. So currently, if you look from that point, what would be the quantum of the fixed assets which would be dedicated towards the US and which would be not generating any top line for us? And how we see the ramp up to happen once the plant gets approval in the near term?
Sudhir, you want to answer that, please?
Yeah. So I think it's a difficult question because all the manufacturing facilities which we have is fungible, and the way it's planned is basically looking at the volumes over the next 3 to 5 years on a global basis. So I don't know how to respond to that as to what percentage of capital is manufacturing capital is assigned to US. I mean, there can be some thumb rules of looking at it, right? I mean, for example, what is your per capex which you have spent in putting up the manufacturing facility, and based on that, what are the volumes which are getting manufactured for the US, and then see what extent of the capital can be allocated to the US. That could be too theoretical, I would say.
Sure, understood. And my next question was on the India business. So India, we had a fantastic quarter, but as we stand today, could you provide some outlook as how the growth is panning now that the COVID cases are going down and the market is really stabilizing? So what is our standpoint now?
Yeah, so June data is the most recent that we can look at, 14% growth of the market, and that may have some element of some COVID drugs part of the growth, but not very much. So I think going ahead, if you recall, even last year the base started normalizing month on month. So our view is that 10% growth between that range should be doable going ahead. And of course, a lot of it will depend on whether or not there is a future wave. But as of now, this is what the situation looks like in our view, particularly as most markets have opened up significantly.
Sure, sir. That was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nimish Mehta from Research Delta Advisor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. My question is more about the strategy. I mean, now that we want to focus on trade generics, is that because we believe that the market is likely to shift in that manner, or it's more opportunistic? I'm just trying to understand how do we see the market, because we are trying to focus on a segment which is not as high margin as we used to otherwise focus on.
No, absolutely not. In fact, our view has always been that both segments have their own space to grow. the branded segment will grow and the trade generics will grow without eating into each other's share. It's just a matter of us getting into, rather expanding our portfolio reach for some of the acute segments which we haven't really focused on that much, and this gives us a pretty good opportunity to enter. So it's not in any way going to affect the branded segment at all for us. And in fact, entering in this also, we've seen just how difficult it is to really get products substituted, especially in the chronic space. So this even gives us more confidence that the branded business is not really at any risk on this.
So is this more like expansion into new therapies, or again, what I'm trying to understand, it's more Torrent specific strategy, or you think the market is likely to shift? In
this is more specific to Torrent because I think we're probably one of the last companies to enter this segment. Most of the other peers are already present in this segment.
Okay, got it. And the other, actually, the reverse of that is what I understand we're likely to do in US. We're trying to focus on 505(b)(2), which is more like branded, so far. Otherwise, US is a generic market. So again, the same question is more Torrent specific, or you think there's more opportunity in the 505(b)(2) space when it comes to US market than the normal generic space?
It's a different profile of business, right? So it's good to have so it's not that you're going to place all your eggs into 5. So if we do 12 to 15 ANDAs a year, we'll do 1 to 2 505(b)(2), like moving up the learning curve. And these products generally can enjoy from 3 years of exclusivity. But the skill set required to succeed is a little different than what we do in our core generics business. So I would say it's a evolution of the company towards the branded space, but it's not as if that's the only activity that you would be focused on. It's a complementary activity.
Got it. So will we be also developing a sales force for the 505(b)(2) that we might be targeting?
Going for initial products, we partnered with a company that has a field force. Leveraging the partner's field force.
I see. Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Sethi from Equirus. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. So just wanted to clarify on the tax part. So are we saying that the tax rate is going to be around 30-31%, and cash tax will be around 17%? Is it right understanding?
That's right, yeah.
And so just on the margin perspective, so given that we are seeing that our OPEX or the other expenses are going to stay at the current level, so directionally, how do you see margins to be going forward in the ensuing quarters? Is it going to be something similar to what we have reported this quarter, or there could be some skewness towards downward or upward trend? So just from a trend perspective, I understand you can't talk about absolute margins as such.
So I think that's what I answered in one of the questions earlier, saying that I would like to wait for one more quarter before I start looking at it directionally, how the margin would settle for this year.
Right. But in any case, if let's say there is no COVID wave, or if hypothetically, if we put it both the ways, if you could give that way.
So if there was no COVID, the margin could improve by 1% every year.
Sure. That's helpful, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Just one clarity on this trade generic initiative. What kind of, can you just talk about what kind of investments this would require roughly? I'm not looking for exact number, but if you can just walk me through. And the reason I'm asking this question in context that there is always an overhang on this segment because the channel margins are so high, and the government can clamp down on the margins at any point of time. So that's the context I'm asking, that what resources are you devoting when you're starting this business? And have you taken a call that such a clamp down from government is not going to come in, and that's why now is the right time to start this?
So the initial investment while entering this business, so there are two ways one can enter. One is by having a large field force attending to retailers, ensuring distribution. And the second is just going to the distributors who then manage the last mile delivery. So that's what we have gone for right now. So we don't really have a large field force to begin with. We've got about 20, 25 reps across India who are responsible for this business. So if the business reaches a size large enough to handle a larger field force at some point, that's when probably there could be some synergy benefit of having our own field force so that the distribution margin can be cut down. But as of now, that's not the case, and we think this will sustain for at least the next 1 or 2 years, and then we can see later on how to take it up forward.
And the products, are you manufacturing it, or these are mostly contract manufactured products?
I would think mostly contract manufactured.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, please press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Sriram Rathi from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the follow-up. So just one thing, I think on the balance sheet, the deferred tax asset is around 421 crores. So does that mean that until that is being utilized, after that probably it will be 25% tax rate from the balance sheet also?
Sriram, you look at the breakup of the deferred tax, because when we show it as a deferred tax, it's netted off against deferred tax liabilities as well, specific country. So if you look at the breakup, you'll find MAT credit at 975 crores.
Okay, got it.
Which needs to be utilized, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishan Kothari from Pictet. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Prashant from Pictet. My question is again on trade generics front. Do you see this kind of as happening across companies now, where each company, wherever they are not present, try to launch the trade generic segments in order to capture that market, and the outcome of that would be that there is a generic kind of a price deflation which happens in the industry as more kind of companies try to grow their trade generics business, and obviously some focus more from the branded part.
So I would not be able to comment on what competition is looking into, but broadly speaking, this is a completely contrasting portfolio. So there is no real overlap where this situation can happen, where pricing can be under pressure for the branded business or branded products. The whole distribution channel is also completely separate for trade generics. So there is practically no scope of conflict on that front. So and that's how this seemed to be an opportunity for us to launch these new products, especially in the acute space, where we felt there was a significant gap in our portfolio, and that's how we continue to build on this as well.
Okay. No, it is just that the overlap might not be with your portfolio, but it will surely be overlapping with other companies' portfolio. And as customers move from that branded product to your trade generic product, there is a price deflation which happens for the customers. And if everybody starts doing the same as what you are doing, then there will be an overall price deflation in the market. Overall kind of
So no, just to clarify on that one, there is a very specific segment of therapies where trade generics has a higher share. Most therapies, trade generics is not significant in terms of market share. So it should not affect the overall market, even if more people enter this space, more brands enter this space. That segment has always been this competitive in the trade generic segment, and most of the other, particularly chronic segment, should not see any impact from this.
Okay. And secondly, maybe a bit unrelated to the earnings here, but what are your thoughts on the consolidation of the distribution channel? Is it something which could be meaningful, eventful in the years to come by?
Consolidation of distribution channel in India, you're referring, or?
Yeah, India only, yeah.
If you could be a bit more specific about anything.
There are companies like Pharmacy who are trying to consolidate on the distributor side. Is it something which is already meaningful or could become meaningful, and are there other kind of players out there who could be doing the same, and thereby kind of reducing the bargaining power of pharma companies like yourself?
No, as of now, we've not seen any impact, and we don't really have any direct selling to e-pharmacies. So that impact should not be there in our view.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants who wishes to ask a question, please press star and 1. As there are no further questions from the participants, I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Sanjay Gupta for closing comments.
Yeah, I think we can conclude the call here. Thank you for participating, and we remain available to answer any further questions. Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. On behalf of Torrent Pharma Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.